it was Iranians who risked their lives and came out into the streets and held candlelit vigils for America. And it was one of the biggest mistakes. It's probably maybe out of misguidedness and ignorance from President Carter's team at the time. It was a complete betrayal. It was, I have to say, President Obama was speaking from both corners of his mouth. On the one hand, he was saying, oh, it's such a shame what's happening in Iran and the people are uprising. And on the other hand, he's turning his back on them.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
We're hearing about Israel versus Iran. It's not really. It's Israel versus the theocracy there. It's Israel versus the Ayatollahs and that system that is repressing and oppressing the Iranian people. The Iranian people, I'm told, really like Western culture. Let's find out. I've got Nicole Sadighi on. She is an actress. She's a producer. She's a writer. She's the founder and president of Angels in Blue. She starred in a movie called I Am Netta. And I've got her on now. We've been friends on like Twitter and X for a long time, but it's really nice to finally meet you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks very much. I'm not primarily an actress. I'm actually a journalist, but that was just a little project that we worked on. It was like a short docu-film. So.
Well, I looked into it a little bit. Your parents were both journalists, right?
Correct. Yes. They're quite famous.
From Iran. So you've taken up what they started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were part of the National Iranian Television. They were two of the main anchors there before the revolution. Actually, before the revolution, we were also stationed in London. They went back. Within 6 months, the revolution started and they had to leave again. Wow. So they were against it, obviously, and their lives would have been in danger. So, yeah, that's another story for another day.
And we'll do that. So do you consider yourself Iranian or Persian, or are they the same thing?
I consider myself American.
Nice. Well, very good. In heritage, I'm Italian, although I'm an American.
Yes.
What would you consider your heritage, your ancestry?
Iranian, yes. Of the greater Persian Peninsula, yes.
Is there a difference? Because some people say Persian, some people say Iranian. Does that matter?
It kind of does. Iranian is the, I don't know how to, maybe it's the ethnicity. And Persian is, there are many other countries who are also part of the Persian, Greater Persia. Gotcha. But we're very multicultural, for sure, yes.
Tell me about the people of Iran. And again, I know that you were born in what, England? Because I tend to hear an accent in your voice.
I grew up in England, yes.
I love that. So have you been to Iran yourself?
I was born there, but I was two.
Oh, okay.
I was two when we left, so...
And you're so young. This is probably during or right before it probably was after, correct. I would think, after the uprising, no?
It was around that time, yes. Yes, okay. Correct.
I mean, I'm not trying to get too personal. I'm just trying to figure out if you've been there. I know you must have people there because you know how the people feel. And again, like I said in the beginning, very different from the theocracy. So tell me about the Iranian people. What don't I know as an American? Because I've been told for years they love us. They love Western culture. They don't want this theocracy. But then the Ayatollahs, act like that's BS and we're the big devil and we should die. So tell me about the actual people in Iran.
Well, the people are, they do. They love America. They love Israel. They've never hated on the West. They are very westernized themselves. Iranians, and before the revolution, 1979 revolution, were very patriotic towards their own nation, but also very international and modernized and very westernized. And they didn't want this imposition of the Ayatollah coming into their country. It was based on foreign interference, actually. But they've never hated the West at all. They're very highly educated, very hardworking, even though Iran has been very much isolated from the rest of the modern Western world. Right. But Iranians are so smart. They didn't, they use VPNs and they know what's going on across the other side of the world, and they want to be part of that. They're freedom loving and they're peacemakers. And in fact, I will tell you, after 9/11 happened, when the entire Middle East was celebrating, it was Iranians who risked their lives and came out into the streets and held candlelit vigils for America because they wanted to show solidarity for the Americans. And no other country in the Middle East has done that.
We never saw that. I want to stop you, Nicole. Over here, we never saw that. I was a television news anchor at the time in Michigan, and when 9/11 happened, all we saw were the Palestinians celebrating, and everybody else was celebrating. This is great. I don't remember ever seeing video out of Iran. Did they not let those pictures get out?
Well, actually, Time Magazine and a few other media did publicize about it, yes, and I've posted about it many times. But you're right, mainstream media is at fault for many reasons at helping to strengthen the regime and this ideology, and haven't been giving the world the true big picture that the Iranians are not the regime. They've never identified as the regime. They've never wanted them as the regime, and it doesn't sell. It doesn't give you ratings if you show that. They love the sensationalism of the instability and the hatred, and death to America and death to Israel and death to whoever else that doesn't align with their ideology.
Right.
So it's something that I like to emphasize a lot, because there are many like you who don't know that Iranians are actually Iranians are and have been for 46 years and longer, actually. But if we want to just look at since the beginning of this regime, have been the number one ally of America and the West and Israel, actually. There are, the regime, I'll give you another example. The regime likes to trick the Iranians or compromise the Iranians in a way. For example, they painted the flags of America, United States, and Israel, big ones, like huge ones, on main roads and university grounds, and would film so that they would watch. They wanted the students and the people to walk over the United States flags and the Israeli flags. In fact, they didn't, because they don't want to fall for that, because they have so much respect for the American flag and the Israeli flag. There's video footage of them walking around it. A few of the regime thugs would deliberately walk on there to try and mobilize the people. Instead, they got boos and hisses from the people. And I've posted this several times. But again, the media doesn't publicize this.
I love that. Well, let me stop you there, because many watching and listening don't realize this, but in that part of the world, like the bottom of somebody's shoes is like the worst insult or something. I remember people would take one guy threw his shoes at George W. Bush. That's like a really bad thing. When Saddam Hussein was toppled, I remember many Iraqis were touching the statues and the pictures with their feet. I guess that's really horrible. But that is such an incredible sign of respect. By the way, it's Nicole Sadighi. And again, you say it the right way, because I can't.
It's Sadighi.
Exactly. Sadighi.
Sadighi. Yeah, not chi, not a cha, but a yeah, like the French.
This is why you're letting me say Sadighi, which I appreciate.
Yes, that's right.
Go and follow her. Sadighi is her last name. First name Nicole. Follow her on X. It's Ms. Nicole Sadighi. I had somebody on from Israel a few days ago, and she said the same exact thing that you said, that Israel and Iran got along. And I went, what? What do you mean they got along? Now, I was 12, 13 when Jimmy Carter screwed that whole thing up and helped the Shah to go into exile and handed Iran to the bad guys, the theocracy that's running it now. But I had no clue before then that Iran and Israel got along. I mean, if you don't mind, expand upon that. They had no problem at all between the two?
No, they had they were very close allies. In fact, the United States and Israel and Iran had military alliance with each other. They would train each other. Yes, people don't know about this. Perhaps we can go into it another time. There's a lot to say about that. So they were the closest allies for many decades before, during the Shah and Mohammad Reza Shah, his father. So it's a shame that this has been destroyed because of this new regime, this very theocratic, evil, tyrannical, bloodthirsty Islamic Gestapo, as I call them, has created instability within the region. And if you look at Iran historically, especially the last century, it used to be called during World War II, it was called the Bridge of Victory because it was such a centralized geographical important part during the war. And both Germany and the UK wanted Iran to ally with them. Of course, they were neutral, and they were more allied with the United States and Great Britain and Churchill, but they were neutral on paper officially. Yeah. And so it's been very centralized. So where there's been a peaceful Iran historically, there's been always a peaceful region and stability and a peaceful world. Where there's been instability and chaos since 1979, we have seen nothing but chaos and instability. So Iran is very, very important geopolitically, for both for themselves, for the region, and the international board. It's people need to realize that we need to encourage the foreign policy legislators and makers to help the Iranian people in a moral support. We've been engaging with the mullahs the whole time. We've been engaging with the ayatollah the whole time, and that hasn't helped. That has not had any positive outcome. In fact, it's resulted in this recent war that we've seen. And so, Stephen Witkoff, who is President Trump's special envoy, will be having another meeting. I'm not too sure what the agenda is, but we have to learn that this regime is not to be trusted. They've shown us that, they've proved that. So we shall see what happens. But, I don't think it's going to come. In my point of view, nothing positive is going to come out of that. I'm not too sure.
Well, I want to expand upon that in a second. Yeah, if you don't mind, let me stop you there because I want to expand on that in a second. Let me reintroduce who you are. Nicole Sadighi. It's Sadighi is her last name. I'm not pronouncing it right, but she gave me the pass and let me do it that way. Go and follow her right now, MSNICOLE Sadighi over on X. Make that happen. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. I want to go back to 1979 for a second if we can. I, by the way, am older than you. It's clear, but I know that you probably know more about this overthrowing of the Shah and the theocracy taking over than I do, so I want to get your knowledge on this. Why do you think Jimmy Carter allowed that to happen? What did he think was going to happen when people who literally were saying, I hate Israel, I hate the United States, he was handing them the country? What do you think the plan was? Jimmy Carter was a horrible president. I remember it. It was horrible. By every metric, he was horrible. But he seemed to be a peace-loving guy. He couldn't have thought peace was going to come out of this.
That's $1 million question, and there's many, many layers to that. At the time, the Shah was providing oil, and petroleum, and the truth of the matter is that the international community wasn't happy with the price of oil. They wanted him to sell it dirt cheap. And obviously that's not in the interests of Iran, and no other country is who's an oil provider is selling it dirt cheap. So I'm not too sure why they were pressuring him to do that. It was just a lot of it was a perfect storm of many reasons, and they have found it financially more palatable to be doing business with this current regime than with the Shah. So he was America's best ally. He was, that we had a good alliance with America at the time. And as President Nixon said, as President Reagan said, and it was one of the biggest mistakes. It's probably maybe out of misguidedness and ignorance from President Carter's team at the time. I think that there was a big influence by EU's big three, which was France, UK, and Germany, who sort of pushed him into that corner to join their sort of campaign to oust the Shah. I do blame Europe a lot for that too.
I'm going to move to his son in a little while, but now let's go to 2009. It's Nicole Sadighi, by the way. She is the founder and the president of Angels in Blue. Go follow her on X. Also did a movie called I Am Netta. I want to get into that too with you if you don't mind. But in 2009, which is where we'll get to Netta, we had Barack Obama in office, and Barack Obama had an opportunity to morally, as you said a little while ago, support the Iranian people. And what he said instead was, we're not going to meddle in the affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And basically washed his hands of it and walked away. And that's when people started being killed in the streets by the theocracy. They then knew you had a paper tiger in office here in the United States. And these are all my opinions. You can correct me if I get it wrong. They knew that we had a paper tiger in office, and he wasn't going to do anything. In fact, he's the guy that almost ended Egypt as we know it, because he let the Muslim Brotherhood have it. And then the military had to rise up and get them out of there. So just tell me, because again, you've got people there, I'm guessing, and you know more about Iran than I'll ever know. When that happened, did that completely leave the Iranian people, just in the dust? That's it. We have no support from the West at all. We're screwed.
It was a complete betrayal. It was, I have to say, President Obama was speaking from both corners of his mouth. On the one hand, he was saying, oh, it's such a shame what's happening in Iran and the people are uprising. And on the other hand, he's turning his back on them and, having backroom deals with the Islamic Republic and negotiating with them. And the thing is, when that uprising was happening, we really thought that this was their moment to shine and
right.
to really help morally. And when I say help, I mean not do business as usual with the regime. Cut off their lifeline from the outside, the external pressure, so that the Iranian people can complete and finish the job that they're doing on the inside, which is trying to take back their sovereignty. And they're unarmed, by the way. They have no defense. But they were making traction. There was momentum there.
Yes.
And when we say pressure from the outside, sanctions really did help. I don't care what anyone says who's against the sanctions. The Iranian people were not getting it's an oil-rich country. It's full of minerals. It's got a lot of potential for growth financially and economically. But the regime was only using the money from that to fund their proxy wars and destabilize the region,
right.
and help Palestine and help Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also to kill their own people. I mean, they would just hire more weaponry to kill their own people. So the sanctions do work because the Iranian people are not, whether they're sanctions or not, the Iranian people are still starving. They still don't have enough water. The economy has been the worst. There's, I think, 60% unemployment in Iran.
Oh, wow.
So people, it's high. So people are really struggling anyway. The problem is this regime, not the sanctions. It's this regime needs to go. If there was a democratically freedom-loving government that was voted in majority by the Iranian people, then there wouldn't need be any sanctions, and they would blossom and thrive. And instead, Obama shipped over caches of cash to the regime. And what did they do with that money?
Literal pallets of money. Literal pallets. I mean, here's cash. Yeah.
And what they did, they hired more guns on the ground to kill the people, and they completely squashed whatever uprising there was with more violence to teach the people a lesson, and that momentum was lost again.
I want to go back to 2009 in a second again, but let's fast forward to Biden. Not only did he do what Obama did, he did it on steroids, gave them $6-7 billion more, unfroze all of their assets, and he said, or somebody said, it probably wasn't him, it was the auto pen, but somebody said, Iran promises that they'll use it for humanitarian reasons, for resources for the people. And then what did the supreme leader say? You don't tell me what to do with my money. It's my money. I'll do anything I want with it. And they were building their nuclear capability. They were, as you said, getting more weaponry. They're getting more militarized. So we literally helped them do that. So let me ask you an opinion on this. Do you believe that the United States government, under people like Carter, Obama, Biden that they really thought they could buy peace out of Iran? Or was there something else going on here? They want the war to continue? Because I don't know why they would have done that. There's no logical, rational reason to give them money on pallets and unfreeze billions. Do you think they really thought that was going to buy peace?
I honestly think that they have been very misguided and naive. For the longest time, many of us have been trying to get in front of policymakers and to really educate them. They really don't understand Iran and Iranians and the potential there and how to navigate the Iran issue. They really, and the problem is in the State Department, they have had people like NIAC, who is the National Iranian American Committee or something. They represent the regime, and they have had security clearances in the White House and the State Department. So they've been in the ears of the policymakers as lobbyists for decades. And the other opposition groups who represent the voice of the people, not the regime, have not had the opportunity. We don't have the cash. We don't have the money to be able to lobby like this group does. Right. We can just use social media, and we try and use as many connections as possible. But it's been very, very challenging to get ahead of that, and that's been a very challenging, frustrating situation to be in. Yeah. So we haven't had the same influence.
I'm with you, and thereby people like me. Well, not me. I know that the people are different than the theocracy, but people in this country believe it's one and the same. The Ayatollahs are Iran, and they're not. The people of Iran are very different than the Ayatollahs. And you're right. You've got lobbyists acting like it's one congealed group. So if we go back to 2009, it's Nicole Sadighi. I'm saying it wrong, but you can go look her up. Sadighi is her last name. Amazing young lady. Go to the website angelsinblue.org. That's the website?
Yes, that's my nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay, go there and check out what she does. In 2009, you did have an election. It looked like Ahmadinejad lost. It looked like there was somebody else who won, somebody moderate, somebody who might westernize the country, and they completely ignored it. Obama then backs away, leaves them, betrays them, as you said, and then the theocracy locks down even more. But in that uprising, and it was not a few people. Nicole, you and I have talked about this at length on X. This was a lot of people. The people really thought they had a chance. And tell me about Neda, if you can.
Neda Agha Sultan. So at the time, 2009 was an uprising due to some kind of an election that they had. And honestly, I just want to emphasize this very important point. Whenever there are so-called elections inside Iran, they're not elections like we know. They're not legitimate. They are selections. And that's truly, they will put somebody else in front who they will call as a moderate. But we had for many years, President Khatami, who was anything but moderate. In fact, he became more extremist after he came into power. So there's no such thing as a moderate candidate within this system inside Iran. It's just another excuse to buy time for themselves and sort of show the world that they're trying to be, they have some kind of legitimate candidates and who stand for different policies, and they don't.
Well, now, it raises another question, if you don't mind. Let me just add to that. I guess Ahmadinejad was before them. Do they pretend like there's an actual fair election going to happen? Because it looked like somebody that the people wanted probably won, but then they didn't let him win. So they pretend like there's an election, but the entire time it's going to be somebody who is supportive of the regime.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. And the thing is, the people used this as an excuse to go out and mobilize and have an uprising. It wasn't really about the election. It was so much more about than that. It was about their rights, their basic human rights that you and I can have, the right to be able to speak freely, the right to be able to have self-determination in the country, the right to religious freedom, the right to marry who you want, the right for women to be able to wear what they want without the constraints of this hijab. And Neda was just a young woman. She was around the same age as me, and she could have been any of these Iranian women, but she represented something, because when she went out to protest against her parents' wishes and her family's wishes, because they were afraid for her, she said, if not now, then when? If not who? If not me, then who? Right. And she became sort of excited that this was going to be real change for Iran. And she didn't really, when she went out, she wasn't at the forefront of the protests. There were the Basij, who are the military part of the police, I would call them, in Iran. And they were stationed on rooftops and everywhere. And they had sniper rifles, sniper shooters, sort of targeting individuals like it was a target practice, and just shooting them from the roofs. She was at the back, but for some reason they targeted her and she got shot. Now, why is she so prominent? It's because everybody had camera phones. They were filming what was going on so that they could post it on social media, and it became very viral. It was very close range, very disturbing and traumatic to see her losing her life. And it became, I think it was London Times said that it was the most widely witnessed murder in human history since Kennedy, because it was filmed at such close proximity.
We all saw it. Everybody saw it. But so I just want to make sure I understand. Her sin in the eyes of the theocracy of the regime was that she was there. That's it. That's all she did.
Correct. Was that she was just there. She wasn't even at the front. There was many other people, but that this is how evil they are, that a sniper from a rooftop clocked her and just shot her straight in the heart. And it was devastating to see. And it went viral. To the point where even, for what it's worth, Obama mentioned her name in a press conference at the White House press briefing.
Well, that doesn't absolve him of anything. Obama has so much ability.
But in fact, it's more of a slap in the face, honestly. Yes. The fact that he knew about it and yet didn't care enough, because he just likes to pay lip service. And that's nobody, that's a real insult to our intelligence.
Yes.
But anyway, so her name, there was a big movement saying "I am Neda" across the world, and that's why I decided I wanted to tell her story, because I don't think she represents all the Nedas of Iran. And then we move forward into recently Mahsa Amini, who also became a big name in the recent.
She was the woman who didn't have the hijab completely covering her head. Is that what it was? Tell us on that if you don't mind.
She wasn't wearing. Yeah, Mahsa was a Kurdish Iranian girl, and she was visiting Tehran at the time. And apparently, she wasn't wearing her hijab properly. And over there's the police called the moral police, and they go around just telling people, you're not clothed appropriately. Women, I don't want to say people, it's always women, and they will target them and they'll arrest them if they're not complying with their uniform, with their clothing. And so she tried to argue her way out of it, but they just kept hounding her, and they called other Basij people and police, and they threw her in a van and took her away. They beat the living bejeebies out of her. I don't want to swear, but they beat her. God knows what else they did to her, and she was in a coma for a very long time, and then she died eventually.
Did I hear the initial story right? She was wearing it, just wasn't covering all of her hair.
It was just, I think, a part of her hair was showing. Yes. Yes.
And that's life for Iranian women.
That's life. There are so many stories like that. I cannot tell you. So many stories of women who were just targeted for that reason. And Iranian women, they're quite fearless and like lionesses, and they are dying for freedom. The even the men, they're dying for freedom. And the slogan after Masa Amini was Zan Zendegi Azadi, which was woman, life, freedom. And the men joined in on that, side by side, standing with their women, because they also don't want this for their women. They want to go back to pre-1979, where during the Shah's time, women had all the freedom in the world, and as we do here, and they didn't have to cover themselves up. There was everybody was very cosmopolitan. It was a safe place to be, and you had freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and women could wear what they want. So they want to go back to those days, and they are very freedom loving, just like the rest of us over here. Except
I
for
very
they
much
just don't have a voice.
No, well, I hear you, and it's just a horrible way of life. Because the argument I get a lot, I'm Christian, I've got family members that are Muslim, they actually converted, and the argument that I get is the women don't have to dress that way. They don't have to wear the hijab or the burqa in some places. In fact, they do it because they choose to. Those who choose not to don't. And I'm a freedom of speech, freedom of expression guy. You're probably a constitutional person as much as I am. And we would agree that if somebody wants to put something over their head, they can. And if somebody wants to wear a burqa and cover their entire bodies, they can. But if they're forced to, that's a different thing. And the reality sounds like in Iran and probably in some other theocracies, they don't have that choice. It's not like this young woman who's now dead had the choice to have a couple of pieces of hair sticking out of the hijab. She's literally dead because she didn't have it perfectly covering every stitch. Do I have it right?
Yes, you do. And in fact, Reza Shah the Great, the grandfather of Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, he actually passed a law and said that he doesn't want women to wear hijabs anymore. You will all take it off. He didn't want to see that because he wanted to modernize the country at the time.
Right.
And I also have to point out, you mentioned Christianity. The rise of Christianity in Iran the growth is at such a high rate that it's higher than in the West. And it's the highest growth of Christianity.
You realize nobody's reporting that but you. Nobody's reporting that but you. I hate to interrupt that, and I apologize, but you're saying things that I've never heard before. And keep in mind, I'm Italian, so we interrupt each other a lot. But when you say that, there's no way the West would know that unless you're reporting, and I'm so glad that you are here on my show. We'll get it out to even more people. There's a rise in Christianity, and again, they're using VPNs and learning about it online. How are they learning about Christianity? I'm guessing that Bibles aren't very prevalent in the theocracy.
Oh, they find them on the black market. In fact,
Wow.
Neda Agha Sultan, she had a copy of the Passion of Christ. And from all accounts, she was interested. I don't want to say she converted. I have no idea.
Right.
But but they're forced to go underground to sort of have Bible meetings and Bible studies and preach. So they are and Iran has many famous, that has old churches there too. So Christianity is not something new to the Iranians. We have Jewish people there. We have Baha'is. We have a huge Jewish Iranian community. We have Baha'is. We have some Muslims too. So we have Buddhists as well. So it's very multicultural, and freedom of religion was always there. It was never a problem for somebody to be of a different faith.
Wow.
But now they are so angered by Islam and what has been imposed on them violently that they're just turning their backs to it completely. Either they are becoming atheists because they're just done with religion as a whole and the controlling aspect of the extremism that has been imposed on them, or they're turning to Christianity. Yeah.
I want to finish up on 2009 with Nicole Sadighi. It is Sadighi. Go follow her on X. It's Ms. Nicole Sadighi over on X. And go to her website, angelsandblue.org. Let's finish up on 2009, I should say. It reminded me a lot of what happened in Tiananmen Square. Now, I've gone to China. I adopted my daughter, Gia, from China. And while there, I purposely Googled Tiananmen Square and what happened in 1987, I believe it was. Or it might have been 89. I think it was 87. Either way. No, it had to be 89 because George W. Bush was in office, so it had to be. Either way, the reports in China are that one man died because of a ricocheted bullet accidentally. Now, we all know about 7,000 people died that day in the uprising for peace and for some sort of semblance of freedom. They shut that down, and they still have massive control over the people of China. Is it a good comparison to say in 2009 there was a chance as well, and a lot more people died than we know about? Of course, we know Netta because of the very viral video, which was very disturbing. I did watch it, and I saw what you did in the movie that represented exactly what happened that day. Is it a fair comparison that there was a chance and it was shut down and no outside actor even gave moral support?
It is a fair comparison, but this has been a fair comparison. This isn't the first time that it happened. In 1999, there was a student uprising that also became violent. Of course, the 2009 where Neda was, and then recently where Masa Amini a few years ago, the uprising happened. And now we see another window of opportunity. Because this regime has been the infrastructure has been so weakened by Israel's recent attack. And we should praise them for that because they've done a tremendous job. And also President Trump attacking Fordo and Natanz and another nuclear site. Right. The infrastructure has been so weakened. It was already weak to begin with. If it wasn't for the pallets of cash that kept getting sent over there every few years. But now it's the same. Let's not look to the past. Let's look to the present. Let's not make those. Let's look to the past to learn our mistakes, but let's not repeat them right now as we speak today. And there is a window of opportunity for us to show our support, engage the people, stop engaging the Islamic Republic who don't represent the voices of the people. And quite frankly, I think they're finished. They're completely finished. We don't even know who the leadership is now.
Nicole, I'm glad that you say that, and I want to agree with you, and I hope that you're right. Let's talk about that in the remaining moments, and thank you so much for giving me so much time. So nice to meet you face-to-face. Let's do this again very soon. How do they – I'm with you. They're the weakest they've been in a very, very long time. They're getting cut off. No money is coming in. They're now completely decimated when it comes to their nuclear abilities. They don't have that leverage anymore. The people, I'm sure, are buoyed by what just happened. But how do you finish them? I don't want us to go in there. I don't think you do either. I don't want Israel to go in there and invade. I don't think you do either. So how do the people now get this uprising going? And you might know this, and you might not know this. And if you don't want to say, let me know. But are there enough factions in the military who would have to do this to rise up, who are against the theocracy, who have been sort of sleeping and waiting for an opportunity? Can they do like what the military in Egypt did to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, there have been some dissent within the military, and we have to separate the Iranian military from the regime. The Iranian military was already there before 1979, because Iran had its own military. Right. Unfortunately, they were weakened after the regime. If some of them didn't comply, they were shot. Their morale had dropped significantly, and they've been looking for some kind of guidance. The Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who has been a staunch representative of the voices of the inside Iran, he has been contacted by the military on the inside. Oh, wow. And they have told him, we're ready when you are. He has given up the comforts of his life on the East Coast to do this. He doesn't have to, but the people are screaming for just one name, and that's Reza Pahlavi.
Well, let me ask you now. This is the Shah's son.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, because I talked to a former representative yesterday, a friend of mine, Ted Poe. He was in Congress for a long time, former judge. He says there's a full government of Iran already formed, and there's a woman who is the president or prime minister. It seems like there are two options here. Is the right option to go back to the Shah's family? Is that the rightful option, do you think?
I'd like to clarify that to Mr. Poe and
No,
anybody
please.
else.
You know better than That's why I asked you about it.
And I know I speak on behalf of the majority, and I wouldn't put my reputation on the line if by saying this as some kind of misguidedness from me. The person.
Let me say this up front. There is nothing about you that's misguided. You seem to be one of the smartest people I've ever interviewed. That's why I'm taking what you say at face value. So fill me in about what he thinks and what it was rightful. I'm all ears, please.
Yeah. So the person he's talking about is Mariam Rajavi of the MEK, which is Mujahideen, and the Mujahideen became
Al Qaeda,
empowered.
right? It became Al
Like
Qaeda, didn't it?
Al-Qaeda. They didn't become Al Qaeda. They're the MEK Mujahideen. They're a faction of their own.
Okay.
And they helped Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979 to round up the people. Yasser Arafat helped him by sending in Palestinians to round up the people with their Kalashnikovs on motorcycles and their red armbands. And the MEK was on the ground. The MEK are a Islamo-communist kind of extremist group. And they helped murder a lot of people. In fact, I just want to point out to any Americans out there who seem to put her on a pedestal that under MEK, they killed a handful of Americans who were in Iran at the time. And then they very kindly signed their names on the American victims' bodies.
Oh, wow.
These people are vicious. They're violent. They were taken off the terrorist list, I think under Obama. I don't know why. And they've been lobbying America, U.S. foreign policy makers. They have a lot of cash to pay their way. And so there has been some talk about that. Let me tell you something. The Iranian people know very well who the MEK are. I'm talking about the Iranian people inside Iran. Don't, forget about the diaspora. We only are echoing what they say on the inside. They will not stand for the MEK. Okay. They will not put up with the MEK because they've been there, done that with this regime. They don't want this regime to, a tyrant to be replaced with another tyrant. They are screaming and begging, and there's videos of them en masse. Shahanshah Ruhat Shah, which is Reza Pahlavi, which is, the referring to his father, rest in peace, and him. They only want him. There's only one name. And so if we're going to do this honorably, and if we're going to learn from our past mistakes and not be foolish like we have been in the past, let's listen to the Iranian people. They're very smart, unlike 100%. How the View keeps thinking they are.
I want to, well, yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Very good. Very well said. It's Nicole Sadighi. It's Sadighi. Go follow her on X. Let me throw out, because I know a little bit about a little bit, and that gets me in trouble sometimes. The reason I said the Mujahideen became Al-Qaeda is because Osama bin Laden was in the Mujahideen, and they're the ones that fought back the Soviet Union with our help in Afghanistan. The Mujahideen did not become Al-Qaeda. Did Al-Qaeda become a faction of them, a branching? Because he went from there to being the financier of Al-Qaeda, did he not?
He did, but he wasn't part of the Iranian MEK. The MEK is the Mujahideen al-Khalq, which is different.
See, now you're just confusing me. So there's a Mujahideen in Iran, but this Mujahideen that was in Afghanistan was different.
Correct.
Now I know.
May have,
Why have
they
you
may
on?
have collaborated at some point, because I know that Khomeini did give Bin Laden and Al Qaeda, a headquarters in Iran after 9/11, actually.
Right.
So there's that too. But they are different. Mariam Rajavi and MEK are very, very unique in themselves. They're very organized. They have a lot of money, and they've been spending it a lot in Washington. I'll just say that.
Okay, well, and I appreciate you exposing that, because I think people need to know what the Iranian people want. Let's finish on this. So the way that this would happen, in your opinion, it sounds like you agree with me, is the military would have to have the uprising, knowing that they have the opportunity to actually win, and then the Shah's son would come back in, and the people of Iran want that.
They do want that. They want it desperately. And we have to help them with their self-determination. We can't choose for them, and they certainly don't want any outside interference. They had that already during 1979. They're very careful not to be labeled this as some kind of foreign interference. But having moral support, cutting off the lifeline to the regime, doing the damage that Israel and America has done with the infrastructure has been a huge help. But in time, the Iranian people will know when the right time is to mobilize and get up. They're already at nighttime chanting off the roof from the rooftops, saying "Marg bar Khomeini," which is death to Khomeini, death to the regime, "Marg bar dictator," and slowly but surely they're biding their time for the right time. They can't just, like bulls in a china shop, just go out and it has to be very strategic and planned. And we need to show our support for their voice and no one else's.
100%. I could not agree with you more. It's Nicole Sadighi. Go and check out our website, angelsinblue.org, angelsinblue.org. And again, MSNICOLE SADIGHI over on X. Go follow her right now. And if you can, go find I Am Netta and go see what she put together there, because it's going to show the story that most Americans don't know the entire story. We've seen the video, but we haven't seen everything, and I learned a lot from you. Let's do this again. Thank you so much for finding time today. I really appreciate it.
I just like to say it's at Ms. Nicole Sadighi, not just NICOLE. MS. Oh, you said MS. That's
I
right.
said MS. I didn't want them to think I was saying Miss.
My bad.
So
Yeah.
listen, you corrected me for the past 45 minutes. Keep on correcting me. It's fine.
My apologies.
It is MSNICOLE SADIGHI.
Yes.
And go follow everything she does. I really appreciate the knowledge. Promise me you'll come back on.
You bet.
All right.
I promise that I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, that's it for Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags. We're going to have another one drop very soon. Make sure you share this to everybody. Make sure you subscribe.